Hey guys, Art 17 here, and as you can see, we are in week 7 um, of 16 weeks. We're about at the midterm area, and as you can see here, midterm presentation due. You should have access to this weekly schedule and to keep track of your assignments you've completed or the ones I've asked you to work on more and send to me again, so for us to get a better grade possibly with trying the suggestions and examples I provide you. And if you have any questions about that, please email me about particular assignment and I will go over it with you. Let's talk a little bit about the midterm straight away here, which is due next week, sometime during the week, maybe right down to the end of the week, Sunday, Sunday night at midnight. But it won't be accepted into the next week, the following week, or the 9th. It will not be accepted then. It's a particular week, and it is the midterm week, which is week 8, which is next week, and that is the week of the starting on the 10th, going to the 14th, but I'll let you have it all the way till the 16th to send me your work. Okay, your PowerPoint or your Google Slides or video. It can be PowerPoint, Google Slides, video, or something like that. If you have another format, fine. But you should be able to, Google Slides and PowerPoint, you're going to be able to put images and text and that I can scroll through and see the slides. With a video, you could have a video describing and talking and showing the images that way. Nevertheless, you are to have at least 5 or more images that describe or give example to your subject matter. And you're also to create your own artwork, one piece, drawing, painting, or other, that relates to your subject in one way or another. That's critical, and that is included in your presentation. Your own artwork. One piece. Not the whole thing is about your artwork. The whole thing is not about your artwork only. It is about another subject that has to do with art. And that could be a particular artist or an art movement like surrealism, pop art, impressionism, on and on. The list is long. Look them up if you're not sure. Art movements. What were the art movements? It'll show you. And then you research that and find one you want to talk about, if that's what you want to do. If you do not want to do that, then it could be about something in art history. Something in art history. Or it could be about a certain art technique or practice or style. Could be various different ways of painting, watercolor, acrylic, oil. Or it could be about drawing, or it could be about charcoal. It doesn't have to be, by the way, about something that we do in class here, which is mostly drawing and painting. It doesn't have to be focused on that only. It can be about other art forms, like as odd as it may seem, cake making is an art, costume art, makeup art, tattoo art, anime, ceramics, woodworking, metalworking, sculpture. It's endless, really. Well, it must have an end somewhere, but in the art world, it seems fairly endless what is considered art and what you could talk about. So, like I'll reiterate about an artist, art style, or art movement, or something in art history, or a particular style or technique. that an artist uses, but whatever it is, you're going to have to be able to produce your own artwork that relates to it. Okay? It relates to it, meaning, and maybe an actual copy of something, or copying the style of an artist, or an art technique, or an art movement. Surrealism, maybe. And you do your own surrealism artwork, one piece. Okay? That's what it's about. And I would like it to be 5 minutes long or longer. So time yourself once you're getting close to be done. Read it and watch and view the images for, let's say 30 seconds or so. A normal person would take about that long to look at something. And then time yourself if it's 5 minutes or longer. If it's 3 minutes, it's going to be a lesser grade. It's not what I required. So really make sure that it's at least 5 minutes or longer. All right. And also, I would like you to align and outline a cultural aspect to your artwork. Like, let's say you did tattoo. Well, tattoos have a big culture to them in several different countries and background. So research that and talk about that a little bit. Doesn't have to be about the whole 5 minutes. Does not have to be about the culture. It can be partly about it. But I want you to address it so that you can show that you researched the background on the culture involved with that practice or that particular art style or art technique or the artist. What culture in his art does he align to, or is the background give evidence of? So this is going to be a little bit of research on your part. If you have a question about it, please let me know, and I will help you figure out where to go to find cultural information about your artist or about the art movement or about the art history that you're going to be talking about. Whatever it is, we need to have in your presentation something about culture that is involved within your subject, okay? It doesn't have to be ethnic culture. It could be a subculture to it. Subculture examples would be maybe biker culture or surfing culture, you know, which may derive from other cultures. So they're subcultures, but there's culture nonetheless, all right, because they do exist. All right. So enough of that. Let me know if you have any questions about that. You're to send that to me in an email attachment. If it's a video, then I want it in email, not on Canvas. Don't use Canvas. Send it in the email. It's a lot easier for me to focus on emails than back and forthing and trying to get Canvas to take these things when they're maybe too large or whatever it is. So I found difficulty with that. So it's just much easier, and most students are able to do that with no problem. If you have a problem, we'll get a tech person to help you. But send your PowerPoint or your Google slide or your video, however you make your presentation, send it to me in an email attachment. All right. Enough of that. And let me know if you have any questions. We're going to talk about assignment 12 here, which is understanding illusion of depth. Depth. And we're going to show you some examples of that now. And this is Bing. I also got some from Google, which are similar, and some are exactly the same. Illusion of depth. So it's the illusion of depth, literally showing in your drawing depth. And one of the bigger, more used ways is a road or railroad or a pathway going off into the distance. They call these converging lines because they converge at the end. They get so far away that they appear to touch each other and get so close that they become one. Also, all the runs on the whether it's a ladder or a railroad track or whatever it is, they appear to get shorter and closer together as they go away. Shorter and closer together. So the distance between them is shorter, appearing, and they seem to get shorter as they go away when the converging lines meet. So you'll see that in this image, how the lines go back. They're not straight back. They go back to meet each other way back there. Now this guy's standing in the way, all right? But they do meet appearingly. The appearance of them meeting is what you're after, because in reality they don't. If you were to walk down this all the way, the rails would be the same distance from each other. But as you're standing here looking down, they appear to get shorter and shorter and closer together. Okay? And also, this one has a light at the end, so you've got shadowing that gets darker and darker as this tunnel gets closer to you. Down in the end of the tunnel, it's light, very light. So that's showing depth as well. Okay? Let's go back and see other examples like this one. A ladder going down into a hole. It gets really dark down there, you can't even see. But up here it's lighter, so it's a gradual change in tone to the midtones down to where it's so dark you can't see. The ladder, the sides of the ladder, and the runs all appear to be getting closer together and closer to each other, not as far away. So they get smaller and these get closer together as they go down. This one's, the distance right here is less than this one and this one. So it's less. Pretty soon they're getting really, really close to each other and so short, it appears. This is an appearance. If you pull the ladder out and look at it and walk up and down it, it's the same ladder, same distance between these runs and the sides of the ladder. But the appearance and the illusion of depth have convergent lines and everything gets closer and closer together as they go down and shorter. Okay, so that's one. That's another one to use. This one's kind of a good one to use, but it's a photograph, but you could draw this and each square gets smaller and they get closer together and they get shorter down as they go away from you. That was actually a pretty good one right there. Let me see. Something like this. Of course, I don't think that's a drawing, that's a photograph, but you could do something like this, and you could do it in color if you want to. It would show the depth. All right, and then something like this, a hole going down with all kind of different items, and then it gets darker here with the shadow, and then lighter here where the light's hitting it, and darker in here with the shadow, and lighter here, darker here. This is showing it going down into a hole. Of course, it's an illusion. There's some other ones here that maybe are not as successful. Let me show you another image, possibly here. And like this street right here would be showing depth, converging lines. This is a one-point perspective, meaning the perspective point is down there, and all the building parts go down to point to that perspective point. I'm going to talk about that in the next lesson this week. 1 and 2 point perspective. But for now, this is 1 point perspective, because if you put a dot on the horizon line, and you're standing in the middle of this street, all the sidewalk and all the buildings and all the windows and the balconies and the roof all go down and point right to this perspective point. They would meet there. It's a perception. It's an illusion. Because if you walk down the street, the buildings just get larger and larger as they normally are, right? But from here, it looks like everything's getting smaller and closer together as it goes away from you. And that's the deal. This one even shows depth because this horse is slightly smaller and less in detail. So that's a way to do it too. Anything in the background has less detail and less value, meaning less saturation of graphite or color. So this is diminished in detail and saturation of whatever you're using as your media. It's blurred out. It's less vibrant than the horse in the foreground. It's got all the vibrance and the detail, and it's larger. So that's a good way to do it too. I would show maybe 3 horses and even one back here that's even smaller. And that's going to be really talking about it. All right. So I'll show you some other images as well. Here is fence posts. If you can continue down on these, it would show depth. This is kind of a short version of it, but each one is getting shorter, appearing, and closer together to the other one. So this distance is less than that distance. That one's less than this. That one's less than this, and on as they go down. Of course, when you're drawing any of this, you're going to put in your light source. You're going to have a light source shining on one side or the other. So this side's coming from the right, and then you have this side of the post lit up, and this is the shadow side back here. And then you have a cast shadow on the ground, showing exactly where your light source is coming from, somewhere back in here. Same with trees or whatever else you have here. You're going to represent your light source and what direction that light source is coming from. We've talked about this endlessly. So let me show you another image. This would be a pathway idea where all the trees get smaller. The trunk size is less, and they get a little shorter, and they get less in detail, and they less in graphite saturation value. So back here is kind of a gray tones. Here you have more dark and lights. You have your light source coming from the right. You have a cast shadow on the pathway from the trees. You have light and dark side to the trees because the light's coming this way and shining on the tree on the right and leaving the left side with the shadow. And it's a gradual transition between those. But the trail, the pathway, gets closer and closer together appearing. It's converging lines, even though they're kind of winding back and forth. They're still converging back there. Okay, so that's another idea. And here's even another with the trees getting, thinner looking. They appear to be thinner because they're going away from you. They're off in the distance. Everything looks smaller and closer together when you go off into the distance. When you come in the foreground, these tree trunks are more accurate to their size. So it's an illusion that they're getting shorter or smaller or thinner. That's the illusion of depth. This one's winding down. This distance here is less wide than this one. So as you go down, it gets closer and closer together so that the width in the path is less and less and less and less and less. And then these tree limbs back here and all this bush stuff, it's not defined. You don't see a lot of detail in it. It's just sort of smudged in or slightly shaded in, and then all the stuff in the foreground, as you come closer, it gets more and more detail and more dark and light contrast as opposed to the background. Okay. Let me see if I can find any other ideas here. Well, these trees sort of show that, but this isn't drawn very well. Whatever you draw, shade the whole thing. Don't look at one of these and go, oh, I can do that and I don't have to shade it. No, you have to shade whatever idea you're having, okay? Whatever it is, even something like this, you're going to have to shade it. If it's pretty intricate, maybe you don't want to try that. Let me see what it has of railroad. Here you go. Of course, you're going to have to shade this, right? I said that a million times. If you were to do something like that, you've got your telephone poles that are getting shorter and closer together as they go down to your 1 point perspective. Same with the railroad. Its converging lines meet at the 1 point perspective on the horizon line back there, right there. And then same with the fence posts. They all are getting closer together and smaller and shorter as they go back. And the same with the runs in here, or the ties runs. Well, they look like runs. The ties are getting shorter and closer together as they go away. If you do something like this, you need to give the sky a tone, because sky always has a tone, unless it's a white blizzard. If it's not a white blizzard, then you'd have a bunch of snow on the ground. You wouldn't see any of this stuff. So this probably is gray or blue or something in that way. So gray or blue is going to have a tone to it with your graphite. Or if you're coloring it in, it's going to have a color. Same with the mountains and the land. Even if this is scrub and sand, it has a tone to it because it has a color. It's not white as paper. Nothing in here would be. And then you got your shadow areas on the back of these ties and on the posts. So all that has to be played out if you're going to do something like that. I'm just giving you that example of the illusion of depth. These don't have any shading, but I want you to have shading. Okay, these are just ideas showing telephone poles and fence posts and everything going back into the distance. This is a better one because it is shaded. Converging lines on the railroad. You got your telephone poles going way back and way back and way back. The lines going back to that perspective point right here, the 1 point perspective, the vanishing point. It's also called a vanishing point. And this is sort of, shaded in. It's kind of, it looks sort of like a negative, but I would say this would be better shaded, except for the sky is white. Why do they leave it white? I don't know, because it's really not white. It has at least a slight tone to it. If it's gray or blue, it's got a tone. So put that in, or I'm going to ask you to put it in, and I'll send it back to you. All right, so these are a lot of different ideas. Here's the railroad idea, and you can take this further. This is illusion of depth. This one is too. This one is too. The bridge going off into the distance. The vanishing point would probably be back here somewhere, wherever it points to, because you're standing off of and this bridge is way off into the side, so it's going to have even more of an angle to it as it goes to the vanishing point back there. Okay. I think you got the idea. This is even the same sort of idea. Industrial. Looks like you have trains going off into the distance. They get smaller and closer together as they go away. These are all going away from you. So they appear to get smaller and closer together. All right, let's leave it at that for the illusion of depth. Any questions, let me know. Any questions about the midterm, let me know, and we'll discuss it. But that's due next week, week 8, by the end of the week, by Sunday night. Okay? And we'll talk about it that week as well. And I'll talk about it again in the next video. All right, thank you.